Once upon a time, there was a young girl who loved unicorns, but everybody in her family always told her unicorns weren't real. But she said that she did not believe that because there was no proof that they weren't real. But then someone said, "Can you prove that they are real?" And she said, "Well, no, but I choose to believe they're real." And they said, "Well, if you can't prove that they are real and you can't prove that they aren't real, does that make them real or not real?" And she thought, "Wow, I'm really young and I should not have to deal with that kind of thought. So I believe they're real." And they said, "You got a point. So no more philosophy." And then one day she heard a strange thumping noise.
No, Daddy.
Don't go there, Dad. And she went to investigate.
No, Dad. No,
And it was a little rabbit
Oh,
sitting.
okay.
I don't know what you were thinking, but okay.
I was thinking Jumanji.
You were thinking Jumanji, huh?
I'll sleep over
Okay.
here.
Other things thump, not just Jumanjis. And there was a little rabbit thumping his foot on the wall.
No.
And she went up and said, "Aren't you the cutest little rabbit?" And he said, "What? Where's a rabbit? I don't see a rabbit." She said, "You're a rabbit." He said, "No, I'm not a rabbit. I'm a unicorn. Can't you tell?" And she said, No, I'm sorry. You're mistaken. You are a rabbit." And he said, "Look, I don't know how to tell you this, but I am a unicorn." And she said, "Well, can you prove you're a unicorn?" He said, "Can you prove I'm not?" And she said, "Well, kind of have a point there. So what do I call you?" And he said, "You can call me Dell."
Dale?
Dell. And she said, "That is the weirdest name I've ever heard for a unicorn or a rabbit." And he said, "Why do you keep insisting that I'm a rabbit? I am a unicorn." And she said, "Fine, where's your horn?" And he said, "Oh, I left that back at the shop." And she said, "Shop? You have a shop?" He goes, "Yeah, all unicorns have a shop." She said, "What's in the shop?" He goes, "Well, we just keep different things. Like some people bring their cars in and leave them for some reason." She said, "Who drives a car?" And he said, "Well, the gnomes like to drive, but it takes like 6 of them too, because one has to sit in the seat, one climbs up the other one, drives the steering wheel, and they just get in wrecks and they bring them in and then they leave the cars there, and it's really a lot of work. So we end up taking the cars and feeding them to the centaurs." And she said, "Centaurs are real?" And he goes, "Yeah, of course they're real. And they eat cars?" And he said, "You didn't know that?" Yes, of course they eat cars. What else would they eat?
Me be like, what? Don't go there, Dad.
And she said, "Well, I don't know. I would have thought they eat like grass or something. Aren't they half horse?" And he said, "Well, yeah, but they're also half man, half person. They got to eat something." "Yeah, not cars." "Well, I mean, they don't eat the tires." "Oh, well, I suppose that's okay. So can you maybe show me this shop of yours?" He goes, "It's kind of against the rules. But if you happen to follow me and I don't notice you, maybe you can get in." And he kind of said it out of the side of his mouth, of course. And she goes, "Something's wrong with your mouth, dude." "Ixnay on the hiding hay," he said. Oh, okay. Wink, wink.
What
And
does
so
that
he
mean?
said,
Ixnay on the hiding egg?
he said, "I'll just be going now."
What is Ixnay on the hiding Amy?
He said, don't talk about the hideaway. Anyway, so he said, I'm just going to be hopping along now, and you can't follow me. She said, okay. And away he went, and he hopped around the corner, and she tiptoed around the corner.
Haha.
And then she noticed him getting behind a garbage can, and she tiptoed up to the garbage can, and she peeked around, and he goes, what are you doing? And she goes, ah! And he scared her, and he goes, I thought you weren't going to follow me. And she goes, I thought you were hinting at something. He goes, no, I was just coming over to get this carrot. Now I'm leaving. And so he ate the carrot and then hopped away. And then he went down an alley that didn't seem to have any way out of it. And she saw him pull out a piece of chalk from his pocket, which she had no idea rabbits had pockets to begin with. And he drew a little tiny door that only a rabbit can fit through. And lo and behold, he walked right through the door in the brick wall. And she ran over there real quick and tried to squeeze her hand in, but she couldn't even get just her hand. She's like, how am I going to get through here? And then the door started to close, and she couldn't get her hand out. She had gotten her wrist in, but by then the door had closed around her hand, and she couldn't get her hand out. And she started to panic. And then it got tighter and tighter, and suddenly it released, and it got bigger because the emergency alarm kicked in, because it didn't, how it just didn't want to cut her arm. So then it opened up real big, and she crawled through. And when she got on the other side, it wasn't even in the city anymore. It was just all these trees and
What
grass.
city do we live in?
We were in the Big Apple. They were in the Big Apple.
What's the Big
They were in
Apple?
New York City. You don't remember the Big Apple stories when you were little, huh? We'll have to hear one of those. That's where Kevin Bacon lived. The famous pig.
I don't want to live in New York City. I want to
No,
live in
I don't
Raleigh.
either. Yeah, me too. I definitely don't want to live in New York City. That's not a place I'd want to raise a kid. All right, so anyway, there's grass and trees and orchards and all kinds of, it's like she just went right through into the countryside, and she turned around and there was nothing there. It was just air. She's like, what happened to the wall? Where's the bunny? Where am I? And so she started to look around, and she didn't see much of anything other than a beautiful green area with trees and grass and birds and stuff like that.
Can the story be placed in Raleigh, not New York City? Because I don't really like New York City.
Yeah, sure, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So she started walking. She's like, well, I might as well figure out where I am. And off in the distance, she saw a mountain, so she started walking toward that, because all the other directions were just kind of green and trees. She noticed the most green grass she had ever seen. It was like this, just vibrant green. It was crazy. And so she starts walking toward the mountain, thinking maybe somebody lives there. I can call my mom and get a ride home or something. And so she's walking, but it just took forever, and she started to get really hungry, and she's like, well, at least there's apples everywhere. So she grabs an apple and then takes a bite, and as soon as she took a bite, she heard this horrible screaming, like somebody was getting killed or something. It was crazy, and she's looking around going, what
Dad,
is
are we
going
going
on?
back to Jumanji?
No. Do you want me to
No.
go there? Okay. I was never planning to take you there, kid.
I'm scarred for life.
Are you? Okay, good.
Good!
Yeah, that's healthy. It's good to be scared sometimes.
I said I'm scarred for life.
Yeah. Let me know when you get through therapy on it. So anyway, she couldn't figure out where the screaming was coming from until she heard something say, ow! And she looked around and said, "Who said that?" And she goes, and it goes, "Me." And she says, "Me who? Where are you?" And the tree shakes its branches and goes, "I'm right here, fool. Can you not see me?" And she said, "Well, you're a tree. Trees don't talk." And he said, "What are you talking about? We were the first ones that taught everybody else how to talk." And she said, "Really? Where am I?" And he said, "You are on Threa." Is that it? Threa? You're on Threa. Where are you from, girl?
Threa.
Earth, backwards, right?
Threa.
Threa. Yeah. And she said, "I'm from Raleigh." And he goes, "What's a Raleigh?" She said, "North Carolina." She said, "What's a North Carolina? What's a Carolina?" She said, "It's a state in the United States." He said, "What's a United State?" She said, "Wait a minute. You what? Where am I again?" He said, "The planet Rhea or Threa.
Threa.
Threa. I don't know why I can't get that right." She said, "Planet? What?" He said, "Yeah, where are you from?" She said, "Earth." And he goes, "Oh, you're going to want to head over to that mountain over there and talk to, you're looking for a girl named Frenchie." And she goes, "Frenchie? What's," he goes, "Well, that's our queen. So you need to go on."
You mean rock and roll?
Yeah, sorry. You need to talk to R&R. Yeah. She goes, "R&R, huh?" And says, "Yeah, it's short for rock and roll." She goes, "You have rock and roll? We have rock and roll." He goes, "Yeah, we invented it." She goes, "Ugh, really?" Anyway, so she starts heading toward the mountain, and she realizes it's going to take her like weeks to get there. And she turns back around the tree. She's like, "Hey, is there an easier, faster way to get there? Do you guys have Uber?" And he says, "I have no idea what an Uber is, but if you need a ride, just call the unicorns." And she said, "What? There's unicorns here?" And he said, "You guys don't have unicorns on Earth? What a boring place that must be." She said, "Yeah, well, compared to this, it's pretty boring. Trees don't talk. There are no unicorns." He goes, "Ah, you poor thing." So he makes this weird whistling noise, but it was sounded like kind of like, here, I'll try to do it. It was like, and then all of a sudden a unicorn came galloping up, and he said, "Someone call me?" She said, "Well, this guy did, but I could use a ride." And he goes, "Oh, hello, what's your name?" And she said, "My name is
JJ.
JJ." And he said, "JJ, did you know that's the same thing frontward and backward?" And she goes, "Well, it's kind of obvious, but yeah." Anyway, can I get a ride? And he said, "Yeah, sure, hop on." So she hopped on, and away they went. And even though that mountain seemed days away, it seemed to her like it took about 10 seconds.
It actually took 5 minutes.
Yeah, but she was having so much fun, it seemed like seconds. And when they got there, she said, "I really don't want to go now because I had so much fun with you." And he said, "Yeah, I get that. See you later." And he took off.
Upsetting?
Yeah, I know. Really bad. So anyway, she realized it's not a mountain. It was actually just a really, really tall house. And then she knocked on the door, and all she heard was, "Roof!" And she's like, "Are there dogs here?" And then, so she knocks again, and it goes, "Roof, roof!" And so then all of a sudden the door starts to swing open.
Where are you?
Right here.
Munchkin.
Me. What's a munchkin? Oh. So the door swings open, and there is the scariest looking thing she had ever seen.
Then she realizes it's just a adorable French bulldog.
It was not a French bulldog.
What?
It was some kind of strange serpent thing but it had like a chipmunk head and snakes for hair, and then like human looking feet.
Oh, that
And
sounds
it
like
looks
Jumanji.
at her, and it goes, "Barf, barf, barf, barf." And she goes, "What? That's not a dog." And he goes, "Arr, arr." And then you hear, "Hey, pipe down in there." And then the chipmunk thing's like, "Arr, arr, arr," and kind of runs off. And then next thing you know, this little French bulldog comes kind of weeble wobbling through like he owns the place. Like she owns the place, and she's like, "Hi, how you doing, JJ?" And JJ said, "How do you know my name?" She goes, "I know everybody's name. I'm the queen. And you are lost. How did you get here?" And JJ said, "Well, I just followed a white rabbit." And she said, "Oh, did Dale do that again?" And she said, "Yeah, apparently Dale did. I didn't know it was more than once, but that white rabbit, he sure causes trouble, doesn't he?" She said, "Yes, he does." So anyway, my name is Rock and Roll, and I am going to get you home. Do you have anything that belongs in this world? And she said, "No." And Rock and Roll said, "Are you sure? Because you cannot take it back. If you do, it will cause major problems, and it'll rip the fabric of space-time." She said, and JJ said, "I don't know what that means, but it sounds bad." So, once again, Rock and Roll said, "Are you absolutely certain? Because if you don't know what that means, it means we all die." And JJ's like, "Oh, that is bad." So JJ said, "Well, I did eat an apple earlier," and Rock and Roll said, "Well, that kind of counts because now it's in you, and we need to wait about 4 hours before you can go. So why don't you come on in, and I'll show you around, and we can have some safe tea and crumpets that share properties with both worlds. That way it won't be a matter of you taking an apple that's from a living tree back." And JJ said, "Our trees are alive." And Rock and Roll said, "Yeah, I know, but they're not the same. They're not living trees, as in they think, they hear, they feel, they talk." And JJ's like, "Oh, I see." So they went in and they had tea and crumpets, and they actually played a few games, and they had a wonderful time. And again, JJ thought it had only been a few minutes, but 4 hours went by. And Rock and Roll said, "It's time to go." And JJ said, "I really don't want to. Can I come back?" And she said, "Well, I'll tell you what, you hang on to this and only use it when you absolutely have to. You will know when you need it." JJ said, "Thank you." So she gave her this little tiny coin that kind of looked like the size of a button. And she
But it was pink.
But it was pink. How did you know that? So she put it in her pocket, and JJ said, "Wait, before I leave, won't this cause a tear?" And she goes, "No, that one's blessed with my magic. You're fine." Next thing you know, poof, JJ was back home in her bed, and her mom walking in going, "Honey, come on, I've been yelling at you for like an hour. It's time to go to school. Get up and go." And you just kind of shook your head and went, "Was that real? That might have been a dream. I think it was a dream." So now she's worried about missing school. She starts to get her, the bus is coming. She's trying to run. She can't get there in time. She's freaking out. She's running to the bus. She finally gets on the bus. She's out of breath. And her friend's like, "What's up with you?" She goes, "Well, I overslept, but I had the weirdest dream." And she started talking to her friend and reached into her pocket and realized she had the coin. Bum, bum, bum.
Do you know how I know it was a pink coin?
How?
Because I am that girl.
You are, that's right. Okay, there's your story. Say night-night.
I mean, I'm like JJ. Good night. I got new eye mask and rock and roll today.
Yes.
I'm tired. Leave me alone. Sleep.
Okay, good night.
I also got new sketchbook.
You did, yes. Anything else you want to say?
Hmm.
Okay, night-night.
I'm thinking.
Oh.
Dear future self, I'm tired. Sleep.
Good night.